3:02. So we will get underway here. My name is Lee Altman. I'm a Mecklenburg County Commissioner, serving as chair, and we are going to call to order the May 29th Metropolitan Transit Commission meeting at this time. So what we'll do is we'll begin by introductions. We have a lot of people here today, and I know it can be confusing for our clerk who has to count votes and that kind of thing. So as you introduce, can you say if you're the voting member? You know, if you have two people from a town, you know, and one is an alternate, please identify who's the voting member. We'll just go around like that. Beginning on my right.
Brian Welch, Mint Hill Town Manager, and I'll be the alternate today.
Brad Simmons, Mayor of Town of Mint Hill, and I will be the voting member.
Ryan Spitzer, Town Manager of Pineville, and I'm the alternate.
David Phillips, the Mayor of Pineville, and I'll be the voting member.
John Higdon, Mayor of Matthews, I'm the voting member.
Dina Diorio, County Manager, alternate.
Rusty Knox, Mayor Davidson, voting member
And Vice Chair.
and Vice Chair.
Again, I'm Lee Altman, Mecklenburg County Commissioner, and I'm a voting member.
Brent Cagle, Interim CEO, CATS.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vi Lyles, and I serve as Mayor of the City of Charlotte. I am the voting member.
Marcus Jones, City Manager, Charlotte, alternate.
I'm Woody Washam, Mayor of Cornelius, and I am the voting member.
Anthony Roberts, Town Manager, Huntersville. I'll be a voting member tonight.
Brad Thomas, City Attorney's Office.
Tony Lathrop, NCDOT, voting.
Thank you. And I know we have some MTC members or guests or non-voting members and alternates and so forth online. So you can just come off of mute and introduce yourself and tell us your role.
Joe Withlowski, City of Concord, non-voting member.
Andrew Grant, Town Manager. Andrew Grant, Town Manager, Cornelius, alternate.
Bill Funberg, Mooresville representative.
Becky Hawk, Matthews Town Manager, alternate.
Jamie Justice Davidson, Town Manager, alternate.
Okay, I think hearing no more voices, we'll move on. And I please introduce yourself and welcome, Mayor. Go ahead.
Mayor Richard Franks, Gastonia.
Thank you so much. All right. So at this time, I will take a motion to approve the April 24th minutes, summary of our meeting.
Also move.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Cagle, do we have any public comments today?
No public comments.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Moving along, Mr. Cagle, we will now have the Interim Chief Executive Officer report.
Yes, ma'am. So welcome everyone this afternoon. I will jump off into the report. Before I get into the materials, the summary report materials provided, a couple things to note. Just a reminder, there was an email sent out earlier today, but just as a reminder for this meeting, our annual rail shutdown is scheduled for June 8th and 9th. That is an opportunity for us to take the weekend to do extensive maintenance and reviews of the rail, both the streetcar and the Blue Line rail systems. And we will be operating what we call a bus bridge. So we will continue putting that out via social media and notifying passengers on the platforms in advance of the rail shutdown, but they will be able to utilize the Blue Line and the Gold Line via the bus bridge. Another item to note, NCDOT continues to do routine on-site inspections. Over the last 30 days, they did complete again, routine inspection of at-grade crossings on the Blue Line. They have done those in the past. This recent one focused on Blue Line extension or the new segment of the Blue Line. They did have findings or minor notes for us related to things like lens signal cleaning, redirecting of lenses. Sometimes the blinkers, they'll get knocked by large trucks or slightly out of alignment, those kinds of things. So routine maintenance efforts. And again, we have submitted to NCDOT a detailed report for how we will address those items, and they will be addressed over the next 30, 60, 90 days. In some cases, we are waiting on parts, new lenses, so they will be installed as those parts come in. Jumping over to the safety summary. So in summary, on page 14, you have your summary of information. Happy to report that over the last roughly 30 days, or since our last meeting, the April statistics, there were 3 incidents involving buses that had minor injuries or injuries reportable injuries. Those were all instances where vehicles made contacts with the bus and a passenger had reported an injury or requested medical attention, paramedics to come out, or emergency management to come out. There was also one incident, the 4th incident reported was an oddity. There was a private person who was riding a moped through the CTC, and they collided with a person. So it was, again, everyone's okay. There really shouldn't be private folks going through the CTC on motorized scooters, but sometimes they don't follow the rules and sometimes they don't pay attention to where they're going. So that was an oddity, but that does account for the 4th injury reported. On paratransit, we had one rider on board who was transported by medic. A private vehicle made contact with a paratransit vehicle. And again, the passenger on board requested a medic transport. So that was provided, and those summarize the 4 reportable injuries. When we look at the rest of the statistics for special transportation, again, there's the 1 injury. For going to page 20, for the blue line, again, all of the metrics on the 4 reportable items, all of the metrics were within the goal for the month. Moving over to the gold line on page 22, again, all metrics were within the reportable goals for the month. Moving over to our ridership summary. April marked another successful month. With our missed trips, again, they were less than 1%. That represents a 4-month period now where we have seen missed trips effectively at 0 or under 1%. Again, we've discussed this over the last few months. That is all attributable to the availability of operators. And so we are in a much better position today and continue to be in a better position with our staffing availability. System ridership continues to see increases year over year, an 18.5% increase compared to April of 2023. Breaking that down, we saw local bus routes at 18% increase in ridership year over year. The express routes are a little bit better. Local express routes, 19.7% increase. Regional express routes, 18.4%. Rail services also saw an overall increase of 21.4%. Breaking that down is 22.6% for the blue line. And I'm pleased to note that this is the first month in many months that the gold line saw 11.5% increase in ridership year over year. We do believe that that is the direct result of moving the gold line from 30-minute headways back down to 20-minute headways. So that is a positive sign. The gold line, if you'll recall, for many months, really since we increased headways, had continued to see declining ridership year over year. So this is a turnaround, and we believe that it is directly related to the increased headways or the shortening of the headways. There had been a question, Ms. Altman had requested information on transit on-time performance, or OTP. So we have included that. Our on-time performance, really on-time performance, we measure it for all modes. It's most relevant for bus because rail, that's the benefit of rail, is it's very on time. The Gold Line, a little bit less so in that it operates in traffic, but really when we're thinking about on-time performance, it is an important metric for us. It's very, very important, especially in fixed route. So for fixed route services, we see a 79.7% on-time performance across fixed route. Paratransit at 92.4%, Blue Line at 99%, and Gold Line at 92.7% or 92.8%. Gold Line is a little bit lower than Blue Line simply because it operates in traffic. What I would propose is providing at a future meeting next month or month after a little bit more detail on on-time performance so that we can better understand how we measure it. I think that most folks, I being one of them up until about 18 months ago, think about on-time performance when the bus is late. We actually think about it on either side of the schedule. So on-time performance is literally that, when the bus is on time within about a 5-minute margin. And that's whether it's early or late. If it's too early, it is not on time. If it's too late, it's not on time. So we thought it might be good to do more information and a little bit deeper dive into OTP. I think it's very timely in that, 18 months ago, we really started focusing on missed trips. We had to fix missed trips. We feel reasonably confident that we are doing that. So now as we think about having that reliability, the second part of that is making sure that the buses are on time. Industry standard for OTP is about 85%. That's what we strive for, and that is an industry metric. We are below that today. Some of that is because buses running early. Some of it is because of buses running late. We have also worked with National Express, or We Drive You. They've rebranded to We Drive You, but National Express, to create a work group with CATS and National Express to push the OTP up into 85% or greater. And so if it pleases the MTC, we would propose to, at the next meeting or sometime in the near future, having a little bit deeper dive and informational presentation on on-time performance. That is my report.
Thank you. Questions in the room? Questions online? Well, let me say that I very much appreciate the rapidity with which you turned around, this explanation and the fairly deep dive even today. I think that's really helpful to understand what the benchline metric is and where we are in your plans to get there. So that's really encouraging, as are these other metrics, which continue to be really strong. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's see what's next. All right, our next action item will be presented by Chad Howell, the operating budget, 2025 operating budget. Oh, I'm sorry, before you begin, may I ask, there was one question I had about the previous presentation. The tax report that shows the revenue for this month, if I'm understanding correctly, are we actually receiving fewer receipts than what was the forecast? And if that's the case, is there a funding gap and is that a problem?
Sorry.
I will let Mr. Howell field that one.
Right here, this right here. if there's a problem between 161 and 150.
Yeah, so I think that there are two things to think about. The forecast, I believe we're going to come in over our total forecast.
And
but
if
Chad-
possible, can we put that up there just so everyone can see it?
Exactly right. From time to time, there are monthly fluctuations where we will end up with a month that is lower than our trend was projected to be. However, for the year, we're still projected to come in, have greater receipts than we had estimated as far as our budget planning purposes go.
Great. Okay, thank you. Please continue.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Altman and MTC members. As you said, I'm Chad Howell, the CAT CFO. This afternoon, I'll present a summary of our operating budget for review and adoption by the MTC, and touch on a couple other items as we move through. Just briefly as a reminder, and I won't touch on all of these, we covered many of these or all of these in more detail in our work sessions that we had with you, but a couple I want to mention is microtransit. So these are either ongoing or planned initiatives for 25. Microtransit, which again can best be thought of as first mile, last mile connections with smaller vehicles and ride share is in the 25 budget. Better Bus, which is adaptive bus service that changes the mobility landscape or adjusts as needed. Fare study, which is actually getting ready to kick off here shortly, but will be completed into 25. And two other items that are, I'll just finish with these, continued investments in safety and security. The MTC adopted in 24's budget an increase in our contract security services. And there is a further increase that we are asking for into the 25 budget that gets us up to the staffing levels that our security manager and our security team believes that we need. And so that is in here. And we also have a continued focus on our employees, continue to continue to decrease vacancies. I think we're around 10% vacancy rate now or lower. We want to continue that and continue being able to recruit and retain a great workforce. So I'll cover briefly revenues, and then I'll cover our operating expenditures. And again, this just will be just for the operating budget this year. Our final estimate is $283.1 million, is about a $3.5 or $8 million increase over where we believe we'll end FY24. Again, about 58% of it is sales tax, 14% state and federal grants, 11% is the maintenance of effort that comes in both from the city as well as from the county and Huntersville, and about 6% is passenger fares. The passenger fares here, again, we're estimating that based on where we think we'll be as far as ridership goes. And again, there are no projected increases in our fares for 25, just as there haven't been for the last approximately 8 years. On the operating side, again, it represents about an $8 million increase over year-end 2024. The budget maintains services at the current levels through FY 2025. However, it does allow for some increases through efficiency improvements. And I neglected to mention this as we were going through while I'm covering this at a very summary level, you were all provided with a copy of our final SOP book. And I would note that the revenues are covered on pages 6, 7, and 23. And that the expenditures are covered on pages 5, 19, and 23. And so I'll present to you, I would request the Chief Executive Officer recommends approval of the FY25 operating budget. And the actions that we would be requested is for the MTC to approve the budget and also to authorize the Chief Executive Officer to present the budget to the City of Charlotte for inclusion in their FY25 budget ordinance.
Okay. So are there any questions in the room? Yes, Mayor Higdon.
Yes, could you tell me what percentage or how many $1 million come from the sales tax allocation that aren't generated in Charlotte? Come from the county and the other towns?
The short answer to that is, so if you're asking how are they allocated, we can tell you that. We cannot tell you where they originate. The state does not provide us with point of sales data on the Article 43 sales taxes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the reports, as the CEO Cagle pointed out, the reports we use population because that's the best way that we can.
Well, we use the per capita allocation that is utilized for general sales taxes, right? But so I just want to make sure, if the question is where were they generated, we cannot answer that because the state doesn't provide us point of sales. If the question is how are they allocated per the method, then that is provided, and it's in the revenue report monthly.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Any online? All right, at this time, if there are no questions on the operating budget, I will entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 2025 CATS operating budget. Mayor Lyles, would you like to make the motion?
No, I thought that the other members have had meetings and they would know what the motion would be. I'm not sure.
I'm
If I've
suggesting-
had an update on it.
Do you not want to make the motion to approve your budget?
Oh, this is.
I mean, to approve the CATS
MTC's
budget?
budget.
Yeah, do you want to make the motion?
I want to make sure that we are going to be able to do this, so yes, I will make the motion. I move that we adopt the CATS budget as recommended by the interim CEO.
Motion to adopt the budget made by Mayor Lyles of Charlotte. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second made by Mayor Washam of Cornelius. The motion having been made and properly seconded, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion passes. All right, we now move on to our report from TSEC Chair Jared Herms.
So good evening, all members of MTC and the general public. So we welcome a few new members onto TSEC, so they're very warmly welcome, and we're glad to have them aboard. We talked about the Better Bus Outreach Strategy, so we had a conversation in regards to microcharges and talking about conversations about kind of have more on-demand service, and it was definitely very well received. Then we also moved to our website. We talked about the website remodel when it comes to the CATS website. It was definitely very very well received as far as features and accessibility for the general ridership public. We also had a conversation as far as within Better Bus. Also, we had a pretty in-depth conversation when it comes to accessibility and stops and how important wayfinding is, difference between different types of wayfinding and different map styles, and how those will be very important towards the transit experience, and as well as how to kind of make transit in general more accessible to our public. And then we, of course, talked about the June 2024 service change with the public feedback. So that was kind of following from the recommendations of adjusting a few routes along Independence Boulevard, and as well as the routing of a lot of our uptown our express bus routes within uptown, and as well as a few of our a couple of our other more local routes. And some of the feedback was definitely well received, as far as many of them are very happy with having better on-time performance, even if that means a kind of a slightly further walk, like a few extra minutes of walking to a stop if certain stops were to be consolidated. So that was well received. A lot of the kind of proposed changes have been pretty well viewed by the public. There's definitely been a lot of public outreach, and that's been very successful. So other than that, it was a relatively short meeting, and then of course we talked about usual service issues, as well as kind of talking about a lot of new app updates, including the ability for the public to be able to kind of submit kind of service issues into the app, which is definitely very convenient, as so it can be kind of addressed kind of quicker. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Herms. Any questions from Mr. Herms? All right, and my understanding is that our CTAG representative is not available today.
That is correct. Mr. Parker is not able to attend, so we have no CTAG update for this meeting.
Thank you. And before we conclude, if any members have any comments they'd like to make, the floor is yours. Mr. Higdon?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. I'd like to start by saying that I think we talk a lot about collaboration and regionalism, and I don't know if everybody knows this about me, but I grew up here. I grew up in Charlotte. I attended Quail Hollow Junior High School then. Long-term North Carolina legislator Charlie Danley was my principal. Some of you remember him. And I got to know him pretty well because I spent a lot of time in the principal's office for some reason, but he might have sparked my interest in politics. I went to South Meck High School, so I grew up in Charlotte. I've lived in Matthews for the last 23 years. Yesterday I had a really busy day, worked 9 hours at my day job. I went to a budget meeting in Matthews, then we had our regular Matthews meeting, then we had 2 closed sessions, and then I came home and watched Mayor Lyle's meeting. And so I went to bed at 1 o'clock this morning. I want to talk a little bit about the interlocal agreement and the reason why it was originally renegotiated or brought forth to be renegotiated was because this body voted unanimously to have an independent third-party investigation of a derailment of a train, and also wanted to look into how those trains are maintained going forward. And we voted unanimously on that, and when it went to the Charlotte City Council, they said, no, we don't think so, we're going to do it our way. And that's what initiated our desire to renegotiate the ILA. One of the parts that I thought was very important was the set-aside of $500,000 as a discretionary amount for this body to use to commission reports and to do investigations if we so desired. I think that would happen very, very, very infrequently, maybe once a decade, that we might spend a portion of that money. But once again, we have to go to the Charlotte City Council and say, Mother, may I spend this money? I asked the question earlier about what percentage of the sales tax allocation comes from outside of Charlotte. And I don't know what the number is, but it's millions and millions of dollars. And we asked for $500,000 to be set aside without interference from the Charlotte City Council. And ironically, Councilman Malcolm Graham last night made a substitute motion to take that verbiage out because he said it's pretty meaningless. He even used the word it's redundant. And it is redundant. We are no better with the current, with regards to the discretionary amount, we're no better with the new verbiage than we were with the old verbiage. It does absolutely nothing. We still have to go to the Charlotte City Council and say, hey, can we do this, please? And I don't think that engenders collaboration or trust. That tells us that Charlotte City Council has to oversee every aspect of what we do here, and I think that's very unfortunate. And I wanted to make that known. And I will not support the ILA with that verbiage included. That's a very small ask. Again, it's a relatively small amount in the entire budget for cats, and we should be able to spend that money as we wish without having Charlotte City Council bless it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Higdon. Anybody else?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mayor Knox, Vice Chair Knox.
And I wrote mine down. I'm maybe not as well versed as John is in going off the cuff, although I do like to talk. A brief history will tell you that in 1998, voters approved a 1/2 cent sales tax for public transportation. When I say voters, I include voters from Mecklenburg County, Cornelius, Davidson, Huntersville, Matthews, Mint Hill, and Pineville, as well as voters from Charlotte, our little region. Collectively, we have all been financial stakeholders. The MTC was formed as the governing body for this public transportation entity, representing all that voted and all that would benefit from the services that public transit provides. We have all worked in concert to promote, support, and grow our public transit product that serves so many within the city limits of Charlotte, with the goal of serving so many more outside the city limits. Our interlocal agreement had reached a sunset because of its age and relevance, having been created more than 20 years ago. The MTC is our current regional authority and should always be treated as such. CATS is a department of the city, and that acknowledgement is understood. Mecklenburg County and the other 6 towns are partners and have been partners since day one. That is the definition of regional partnership, and if we are going to be honest brokers, we should act as partners. The rework of the interlocal is not now, nor has it ever been a distraction. This document has only one purpose, and that is to define our future as the governing body of the MTC. I have heard that Raleigh is watching. I agree. But our neighbors in Iredell, Union, Cabarrus, Lincoln, and Gaston are all watching as well as we move forward to a future regional transit authority. These future partners need to see that we, the county, and the 7 towns can and will work in unison. When I called for a rework of the interlocal 1 year ago, yesterday, I did so in good faith that we would and could be a stronger working group. The county and the 6 towns hired outside counsel to facilitate drafting the new document, while Charlotte had legal counsel already from the city attorney's office. Some may have viewed this as polarizing, but it was necessary as we started the process. As time went on, the managers took the helm, and I applaud their work in getting this done. They have worked tirelessly, and I feel that what we have today is a document that is a reflection of our little region. The potential of a 1-cent sales tax for future transit needs has never had anything to do with the update of the interlocal agreement. We've been waiting for 23 years in North Mecklenburg for an empty and unattainable promise to be delivered. That wait is as old as the MTC. We are now on the threshold of being able to bring this long-awaited promise to reality. When and if this happens, there will be plenty of tail wagging going on. This is not about politics. It never has been in my mind. It's about providing for the needs of all of our residents. Quality of life does not stop or start at the city limits of Charlotte. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor?
This is my first meeting that I've attended, but I will say that I have been in regular contact with Mayor Lyles. Because if anybody knows me, and part of what I ran on, new mayor 6 months, is that for our county to survive, we have to have more connections to Mecklenburg County. It's kind of ironic that this debate is going on after the meeting that I attended last week with Governor McCrory and Mayor Stoltz. Because 26 years ago, this side of the river reached out to the other side of the river. So the same thing happened again. The first person that called me was Mayor Lyles, other than my inner circle when I won. I don't know what's going on, the inner workings of all of this, but I've said this once and I'll say it 100 times. If the people in this room, because I've already, myself and Mayor Wills in Cramerton, we've already formed a mayor's group in our county, because we know that for us to go to Raleigh, for us to go to the Congress, U.S. Congress, we have to have a unified front. And without that, we don't get anything done. And like I said, I need a bridge. I need $600 million, okay? That's a pipe dream. But if we work together, because Mayor Lyles came to our group and she asked us to support her in the request for 1 cent, 1.5, excuse me if I don't know the exact amount. And our group has, for the most part, we have 13 municipalities. One of them, we have to dance around a little. But the other 12 of us have all agreed that we will do what we can do to influence our representatives to get this 1 cent passed through the state legislators. I actually had a conversation with one of our senators today and one of our representatives. So I agree with Mayor Knox. We have to come together. I know I'm a non-voting member, but I've never let that stop me, because without unity, and yes, I am a fiscal conservative Republican, but like Mr. Knox said, this isn't about politics. And like I said, I've attended some of these meetings on Zoom, but without cooperation, we don't grow as a region. And I might be overstepping a little, but good Lord bless me with a very successful business career. I retired early. My full-time job is the citizens of Gastonia, but also the county. So I don't know what's going on, the politics of this, but you got to put aside your petty political things if there's anything of that nature going on, because we were all elected by our citizens to do right by them, not by ourselves. And like I said, Mayor Lyles and the MTC, for the most part, has all of the mayors of Gaston County on board to help her. And she's agreed to somewhat help us. It was a big ask from one of our county commissioners, but you know, I work with people across the aisle because that's how you get things done. And I'm not a man of talk, never have been. That's why my city council is, they get a little upset. I'm about getting things done. And, you know, talk is cheap. So I've said my piece, but like I said, if we have to work together as a unit, because as a unit, even if our political differences are there, which they are, when we go to Raleigh and when we go to Washington, D.C., I spoke with, I call him Congressman Moore, but he still has to get through November. But his father passed away, but he and I have talked today about funding for transportation. And for us to get things done, you have to come together. I've said my piece. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor Frank. Mayor Washington, Mayor Lyles.
No, go ahead.
Thank you, Frank.
Please.
I just wanted to add a couple of things as we've worked through this. First of all, thank you to the managers that I think did a stellar job in working through this process. It was not easy. There was a lot of disagreement. Where they started and where they ended was pretty incredible, quite an incredible journey. And I appreciate them sticking to it. I appreciate Manager Jones's leadership in that, Manager Dioria, and all the other managers from the towns. It was a heavy lift, it really was. But from our standpoint in my town, it's time to move this forward. I mean, time is upon us, it really is. This is a first-class city with a fourth-class transportation system that it's time to do our best to fix it. But we had to get past this interlocal agreement. We had to do that. And I'm just grateful that from my perspective, we're nearing being able to do that so we can move on. The next steps are just as difficult, if not more difficult, that we've just been through, because these meetings are still taking place as we look toward language of legislation and relationships with elected officials, both at the federal level as well as the state level. So there's a lot of traveling we got to do and not much time to do it in. It's really time to move this forward. Charlotte deserves it, our region deserves it, and it's just simply time. It's actually something that I never thought I'd see in my lifetime, but now it's got potential, it's got possibilities, and I might just be able to ride that train one day, and that's truly a dream of mine. And so thank you, managers, for the work you did. It was a stellar achievement. It was tough. But I think at the end of the day, we didn't get everything we wanted, and yes, I wish we would have gotten the $500,000, I wish we could have gotten trusted with that, if you will. But in the way you have to negotiate things, you just don't get everything you want all the time. And so it's really time to move on. And again, thank you for your efforts. I really appreciate that. Lots.
Right. First of all, thank you for all of the relationships that we've built and we've had the opportunity to work together. But I would say right now, I have to tell you, I feel like I have not been a part of some of the things that have been discussed and talked about for several weeks or months right now. And so the idea that I also want to say, we've used our managers to do this, and it hasn't always been easy, as Mayor Washam has said, but I think it has gotten to a level where we've created something that is almost more difficult to address. Personalities, voice, working together, all of these are tough issues right now. And I can't identify how this happened, but I know that we're all sitting here, and this city, this county, this region really has to have some opportunity if we're going to continue the growth. And I think that, there's a lot of things to be said about this. So one, I think each of us has a member of their commission or their council that has, kind of that bully pulpit to say that. And sometimes that happens in my city with our council. I think more often than not that I think that happens. But I would say to you that we've all worked towards and had a unanimous, except for one member of the council, to vote to approve the work that has been accomplished by the managers for this effort. I'm not quite sure that I could tell you what comes out of this and how it works. I have had the opportunity, I think, to try to address those things that are most important in this effort. And right now, I'm not sure that we're able to do that. So Woody, you may be more optimistic, but I do believe that we've worked together. And once we decided not to include everyone in that discussion, it fell apart. And I think that that's really regrettable. And I know that there's been opportunities for us to do more together. There's opportunities that we can carry this forward. But at the same time, it requires that we all take a look within ourselves and say, what have we done to contribute to this dysfunctionality of this group? Because it certainly wasn't there when we started out.
Mr. Lathrop.
I'm in a different, somewhat unique position here, and I just feel the need to say something very short. I've been the finance chair for NCDOT for almost 8 years. I'm friends with everybody at this table and have worked with most of you on transportation things, and I've been with the CRTPO ever since, even before I was on DOT board. I was on the Planning Commission with the been here for a couple years now. The Advancing the Plan group, the Connect Beyond group, and all my individual interactions with all of you all. And that's to say this, that ever since I joined the DOT board and people started reaching out to me here, by the way, especially people from Gaston County, I have felt and said the need to work together regionally. And I'm saying that as the DOT person here because we just can't get the things, especially the big things that we need to do here done without collaborating and without the relationships. We've got so much growth here that we have to do that. And the stakes are big. And I come at it from a different way in that my glass is half full because I've had individual interactions with everybody at this table, but I believe that we can't not do this. We can't let these opportunities go by as a region. And if we do let those go by for whatever reason, we'll be making a big big mistake. And in my role, I'm ready to roll up my sleeves. You know, I'm very different from you all, but I'm ready to pitch in.
Thank you, Mr. Lathrop. Anybody else? Jarrett, Mr. Herms.
Hello. So let me just first state that I was very, very moved by Mayor Franks of Gastonia's speech, and I wanted to just speak on behalf of, obviously, as chair of TSAC, we are both transit riders who are actively riding, spanning across both, all within the city of Charlotte and all within Mecklenburg County. And then also serve as a voice for many of the riders who do not sit on TSAC or CTAC. In the roughly 3 or so years, Jason can probably fact check me on that one, but that I've been on TSAC, so there has been a stream of things that from a lot of our riders, whether it be buses or trains may not be on time, things where headways may be better, whether it be missed trips, whether it be maintenance issues when it comes to a bus or a train, so on and so forth. Many of the some or many of those issues have been subsided and fixed. Some are still ongoing things that we have, but all of which go into the general theme of, we have a transit system that has the potential to be great and does great things with a lot of great staff members. It's still a transit system that needs a lot of improvements, both within its existing routes, within its existing service, and as well as the ability to be able to create new service or be able to create different service. And a lot of that, and then a lot of the power in being able to do that is, one, money. Obviously, that's a lot of factors within there. But then also within the MTC, and that is why I wanted to become chair after with the departure of Christy moving to New York City. And it's moments like these where we're seeing these infights. I just wanted to just really wrap it all into why we're here, which is very much for the riders, whether it be many parts of Charlotte, what your riders you have in Matthews, Huntersville, Gastonia, everywhere around. So obviously I explicitly state that I will never run for public office, and for many reasons, including this, and I just wanted to just state that all of this is to make sure that we are able to have great transit and improving transit for a lot of our riders, and making sure that you're able to figure out all of your differences and making sure that we are all united. And again, I was not going to speak about this, but admittedly, Mayor Franks' words honestly have moved me. So I definitely am glad that he is here in person and being able to speak on that. So thank you. So thank you to all for all of your work, and I want us to be able to continue doing great things for our riders.
Anybody else?
With another comment.
Mr. Higdon.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons the folks in Matthews aren't dancing in the streets is we've planned for 30 years to have a train come to our town. And we were told in the last couple of weeks that wasn't going to happen. We'll give you a bus. My friend Rusty likes to sing songs. He's undoubtedly sung some Jerry Reed songs, and he's probably familiar with She Got the Gold Mine, I Got the Shaft. I think Matthews is getting the shaft in this deal. And I would have hoped that this group would have helped advocate on behalf of Matthews, since we've planned for 30 years, all of our land use. We spent thousands of hours planning for a train, and at the end of the last second told, no, sorry, we'll give you a bus. And nobody in this room can look me in the face and say that the transit-oriented development around a bus station is equivalent to that of a train. So Matthews is going to lose out on hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue over decades because of this decision. And that's just not acceptable. I can't urge my constituents to go vote for a bus and to pay this penny. I'm sorry. We're getting a really, really raw deal in Matthews. And frankly, I think the people in East Charlotte are getting a raw deal as well. But, I want to make sure the public realizes why I have a little bit of angst today.
All right, thank you. So a couple things. First of all, I would like to thank everybody for voting in support of the budget. I'm glad that we now have an operating budget for CATS for the next year. That's very important. I want to also echo Mayor Washam in thanking all the managers. They have worked tirelessly to, in good faith, represent the interests of their constituents. Everybody at the table was there in good faith. But we do have some different interests. For example, the City of Charlotte isn't probably super focused on people in Matthews or Pineville or the ETJ, but that is the responsibility of those elected officials. So we have global goals that we share, like moving our region forward, but we have also more specific concerns that may not always overlap. So I think it's important for everybody to keep in mind that all concerned entered into this in good faith on behalf of the best interest of the public that they represent. As Mayor Higdon was referencing, we had a year and a half ago really shocking and systemic problems in the functionality of CATS. It was horizontal and vertical problems in a whole host of categories. And this board has an obligation to the public for safety and transparency and accountability. And I raised my hand to serve the public, and I know all of you did too. And that's why when all these problems arose on our watch, we moved to take decisive action to ensure that we could bring order and accountability and safety. And then when the City of Charlotte unilaterally overruled, always in my belief without improperly overruled us with our unanimous vote for a third-party transit investigation, it revealed to this body for the first time that if we did ever disagree with the City of Charlotte, that Charlotte was going to act in a way that would render this body powerless. And that had a bunch of mayors around this table asking questions like, why are we even here? Why do we even bother showing up? And that is why we undertook to renegotiate the interlocal agreement, because CATS functionality is funded by all the taxpayers of Mecklenburg County. That's why this board was created in the first place. And so a year process was undertaken to do those negotiations. And, I know that whenever a settlement occurs, if no one's 100% happy, that's probably a good settlement, because that means everybody had to meet halfway. And so, yes, I think parties on all sides are not thrilled with the final version of the interlocal, but I think that's an indication that it's a good settlement so that we can move forward. And I personally will be singularly focused on the next steps, because I want this community to have the benefit of $700 million a year in transit infrastructure so that we can meet the needs of this community. That will be my focus in everything I do, and I know it will be yours too. So thank you. And if there are no more comments to be made, yes, Mayor.
I am a little bit concerned, not a little bit concerned, but I do think that a unanimous action, and this is parsing this out. There was a unanimous action for us to take, that we would look and review the CATS issues that we all acknowledged, and I appreciate what you've done in doing that. But there's a difference between the how and the what. And so I think in some respects we can agree that we may not always agree on the how, while we will agree on the what. And so I want to be really sure that when we talk about next steps, we actually begin to think about how do we define some of these issues. Now, I remember the first time I got a call about the letter that came, I was furious. I mean, and I called Rusty, I called everybody, and I was just upset because it didn't seem to give me a path of what we were going to do. It was kind of like, here's the letter, here's the materials. And I think that we've come beyond that kind of conversation. And this is something that perhaps collaboration requires understanding, and understanding all positions and everything on the interest. And I agree with you, Commissioner Altman, on the idea that if everybody was really happy, then there's probably something that hasn't been achieved correctly. But at the same time, I do believe that there are some opportunities that we missed in terms of perhaps thinking only of how this would work if it were for me. You know, we're going to have the opportunity to go to the federal government for funding, millions and millions of dollars through this plan. If we have next steps, what are they? And what steps do you believe in this meeting or in this board that's necessary for us to get to that ideal that we would be able to first, you know, as I said, the city council took effort and adopted the many meeting results in this interlocal agreement. And so when we say this, what is the next step? What is the next step? And who decides that? And how does this work going on? I don't think any of us want to give up right now. And so we just need to figure out what is necessary to get done and to get things moving again.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, having concluded our business, at this time, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is adjourned.